Have you ever really thought about it? What it takes to power your world? Every time you flip a light switch or start your car, you're tapping into this massive, invisible network. It's a story that starts miles beneath the ocean waves.
Okay, look at this number. 1/3. It's a huge piece of the pie, right? But a third of what? Well, this single fraction hints at the absolutely mind-boggling scale of what we're about to uncover. That's it. Almost a third of everything being shipped across our planet's oceans is just oil. It is a staggering amount, and its journey from the pitch-black depths of the ocean to the world we live in is nothing short of an epic.
So our story begins where we can't see it, in the silent, crushing pressure of the deep sea, where these enormous reserves of the world's energy are just waiting.
You know, you can almost think of it like this. Deep, deep under the seabed, these ancient pools of oil are basically dormant. They're just this massive store of potential energy, waiting for us, for the world's demand, to send a signal, a call to start their long, long journey to the surface.
So how do we make that call? How do we get to it? Well, it takes technology on a truly monumental scale. It takes giants.
And I mean that literally. These oil rigs aren't just platforms. They are self-contained worlds. Colossal, floating cities with hundreds of people living and working on them, miles and miles from the nearest coastline, operating around the clock to tap into those deep reserves.
And to get a sense of the scale here, it is just incredible. We can all picture a skyscraper, right? The tallest in the world is about 2,700 feet. Well, some of these rigs can drill down 12,000 feet. That's like taking 4 of the world's tallest buildings, stacking them end to end, and pointing them straight down into the earth, starting from the bottom of the ocean. It's an absolutely stunning feat of engineering.
And of course, it's not a one-size-fits-all job. The ocean demands a whole fleet of specialized tools. For shallower waters, you've got jack-up rigs that literally stand up on legs on the seabed. For the roughest seas and years-long projects, you have these immense offshore platforms. And for exploring the deepest parts of the ocean, you use drill ships. They look like regular vessels, but they have a giant drill that goes right through the middle of the hull.
So the oil is brought to the surface, but its journey, it has only just begun. The first leg of the trip is this crucial, hidden voyage from the middle of the ocean back to solid ground.
Before a single drop of this crude oil ever sees a tanker, most of it travels through a vast, unseen circulatory system. A massive network of pipelines laid across the ocean floor carries it from these remote rigs directly to facilities on the coast. It's the first and quietest part of its global trek.
All right, now the real journey begins. Once that oil reaches the shore, it's loaded onto ships to cross the open ocean, traveling along what are basically energy superhighways.
And the size of this fleet is just staggering. Back in 2021, the world's oil tankers could carry a combined 619 million tons. Now, that's not the weight of the ships themselves. That is just the cargo they can hold. To put that in perspective for you, it's enough to carry the weight of nearly 1,700 Empire State Buildings, all at once. An immense fleet, constantly moving across our planet.
But you know, not all tankers are created equal. It's really a two-stage process. First, you have the giants, the crude tankers. These are the absolutely massive ships, the supertankers, that haul the unrefined crude oil from where it's pulled out of the ground to the refineries. Then, once that oil is turned into things like gasoline or jet fuel, smaller product tankers take over. They're the ones that distribute all those finished fuels to the markets where we'll actually use them. They even have special epoxy-coated tanks to handle all the different kinds of fuels.
So where are all these ships going? I mean, while there are countless routes, the global flow of oil is really dominated by 4 main arteries. These are the primary paths that connect the world's biggest producers with its biggest consumers. Let's trace them out.
First up, this is the big one, the heavyweight champion. It goes from the Persian Gulf all the way to Western Europe and North America. This is the main route for those massive supertankers, and because they're so huge, they can't fit through the canals, so they have to take the long way, all the way down and around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa.
Next, let's head east from the Persian Gulf over to Japan. This is basically Japan's energy lifeline. And this one is a fantastic example of how a ship's size dictates its path. The absolute largest tankers, the real behemoths, have to take a detour through the deeper Lombok and Makassar Straits. But the slightly smaller ones can take a huge shortcut through the famous Strait of Malacca. Now, there is also a vital shortcut for oil heading west, the Suez Canal.
This route still connects the Persian Gulf to Europe and North America, but by cutting through the Suez and into the Mediterranean Sea, it lets smaller tankers completely avoid that incredibly long journey around Africa. It saves a huge amount of time and fuel.
And finally, we cross the Pacific. The route from Mexico to Japan highlights another one of these critical choke points. Some tankers are just small enough to squeeze through the Panama Canal, but its locks put a very strict limit on their size. The other option? Load up on Mexico's Pacific coast and make that long, uninterrupted voyage all the way across the ocean to Asia. So, after crossing thousands of miles of open ocean, the oil is nearing the end of its journey. It arrived as a raw material, and now it's time for its final transformation.
At these sprawling refineries, it's almost like a kind of industrial alchemy takes place. That dark, unrefined crude oil is heated, separated, and transformed into all the products we recognize: gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, you name it. This is the moment where that potential energy, which started its journey miles beneath the sea, is finally unlocked into a form that we can actually use.
So let's just put it all together. Let's trace this incredible path one last time. It all begins with extraction, out on a floating city drilling deep into the ocean floor. From there, that crude oil is transported thousands of miles across the sea in a colossal tanker. Then, it undergoes its final transformation at a refinery, and finally, it's distributed in smaller product tankers and coastal barges until that ancient energy arrives right here, at the pump, ready for you. When you really stop and think about it, it's this immense, non-stop global ballet of engineering, logistics, and navigation. A constant flow across the entire planet that we all, in one way or another, depend on. It really makes you wonder, what on earth does it take to keep our world flowing?